Lillian, and today we're going to make this cool sun catcher craft. We have a few different ways of making this craft. You can use a hairdryer or an iron, but we're going to be melting crayons, so make sure you have an adult nearby because it can get hot. We also have a few different ways of making the frames. This one is a mason jar lid, which makes a circular one. This one is made of popsicle sticks, which you can make in a triangle like this one, or you can make lots of other shapes. Or you can make this one that's just a paper frame if you don't have the other options, which is double-sided, which makes it more cool. When you're done, you can hang it in a window to let the sun shine through it, like this. And that will help to remind you that God's love shines through you.
Thank you, Lillian, for introducing our sun catcher craft. I'm Stephanie, and I'm going to teach you how to make the sun catchers. First, you need to gather your supplies. You will need 2 or 3 crayons, some wax paper, masking tape or scotch tape, some string or ribbon to hang your sun catcher, scissors, a pencil, white glue, a hairdryer, though an iron could also work, some newspaper or scrap paper, a skewer or a toothpick, a crayon-sized pencil sharpener, and some framing material, some popsicle sticks, a mason jar lid, or construction paper. To make this craft, we're going to be melting bits of crayon wax. A hairdryer is the easiest way to do this, though an iron works quite well. You'll definitely need some help from an adult, and we recommend that you watch this whole video before trying it on your own. Choose 2 or 3 crayons that you like the colors of, and carefully peel the paper away from the crayon. Using a pencil sharpener, sharpen the crayon into little bits. I recommend you do this into a small bowl. Use a separate bowl for each color of crayon. I had to use about a half of a crayon for each color. It depends on your design. If you don't have a pencil sharpener large enough for a crayon, you can finely chop your crayons with a knife. Make sure you use an old cutting board or cover it with some newspaper. You'll definitely need an adult to help you. You can also use an old cheese grater to grate the crayons, but make sure you get an adult's permission before you use the cheese grater, and make sure it's no longer being used for food. Before you start, cover your work surface with some newspaper to protect it from the wax and the wax paper. Then, cut 2 pieces of wax paper. The top piece should be slightly smaller than the bottom piece. Set the top piece aside for now. Next, you're going to sprinkle your crayon bits onto the bottom sheet of wax paper to make a pattern. You can make whatever pattern you choose. Keep the area fairly small so that your sun catcher isn't too big. And don't put on so many crayon shavings that your sun catcher ends up being really thick. Take your second piece of wax paper and lay it over top of the first to make a sandwich with your wax crayon bits in the center. Tape the first paper down to the second one and tape the whole thing to your work surface so it doesn't slide around too much. Clear away any loose crayon bits that may be on your work surface. We're going to be melting the crayon wax now, and we don't want those loose bits to get melted to our work surface. Using a hairdryer on the hottest setting, slowly blow onto your crayon creation to melt it. Continue until all of the wax bits look melted. Your melted crayon bits will look quite different than what you started with. They will have merged together and formed a really cool pattern. Allow them to cool for at least 15 minutes to harden before you move them. Don't peel apart the wax paper sandwich. The layers need to stay together for your finished sun catcher. If you don't have a hairdryer, you can use an iron. Make sure to empty the water out of your iron or turn the steam setting off. You will need a wooden cutting board or a flat hard surface, maybe a piece of wood, to work on so you don't damage your table or your ironing board. Cover the surface with several layers of newspaper to protect it from the heat and the wax. Cut a large piece of wax paper and fold it in half. Open it up and arrange your crayon bits inside. Again, remember, don't make a big pile of crayon bits. Spread them out and make an interesting pattern, the size you would like your sun catcher to be. Fold your wax paper closed to cover up your crayon bits. Make sure there's no loose crayon bits around on your work surface that might get on your iron. And cover your wax paper with a sheet or two of plain paper. Do not use newspaper. You don't want to get the ink on your iron. Make sure all of the wax paper is covered. Make sure you have an adult with you for this next step. Plug in the iron and put it on its lowest setting. Gently press the paper. Try not to rub the iron back and forth, but lift and press the paper with the iron. Iron just for a few seconds and peek under your paper to see how your crayon bits look. Stop as soon as they're well melted. If there's still some bits that aren't melted, you can keep ironing, but check often. Your crayon bits will melt together and look a lot like the ones we did with the hairdryer. Make sure to allow them to sit and cool for at least 15 minutes so the crayon can harden again. We're going to show you 3 different ways to make a frame for your sun catcher. This way you should be able to make them with materials you already have at home. You can use an empty lid from a mason jar, some popsicle sticks, or a piece of construction paper. If you've decided to use popsicle sticks to make your frame, you can make a triangle, a square, or another shape. Lay out your popsicle sticks in the shape that you want to make. We'll glue them together later. Put them on top of the wax paper right where you want to cut out your sun catcher, and trace the shape onto the wax paper. If you've decided to make a mason jar lid as your frame, you can use the metal insert that usually goes inside the lid as your template. Place the metal lid on top of your wax paper art, right where you want to cut it out. Trace the circle onto the paper. Now take your wax paper art and cut out the triangle, square, or circle that you have drawn. Do not remove the wax paper. It needs to stay on to protect the crayon underneath. For the mason jar frame, you'll now turn your mason jar lid upside down and put a line of glue around the inside of your mason jar lid. Take the circle that you cut out and place it inside and gently push it into the glue. Set it aside and let it dry. Once the glue has dried, you can add a string to your mason jar lid so you can hang it in your window. Cut a length of string and wrap the center of it, the middle of the string, around your mason jar lid and tie it tightly in a knot. Then take the 2 ends and tie a knot at the end of them to form a loop. You can use this loop to hang it in your window. To make the popsicle stick frame, lay your popsicle sticks in the shape you would like and put 1 dab of glue on one end of each popsicle stick. Overlap the ends to make your shape. I'm showing a picture of a triangle, but you can do something similar with a square. Draw a thin line of glue around your popsicle sticks and place your triangle of crayon art on top. Gently press it into the glue and then set it aside to dry. Once the glue is dry, you can add a string so you can hang your sun catcher in a window. Cut a piece of yarn or string. Then use a skewer or a toothpick or something sharp to poke a hole through the wax paper and the crayon. If your string is thick, you may need to wiggle the skewer to make the hole a little bigger. Poke your yarn or string through the hole that you've made and tie the two ends of the string together to form a knot. This will make a loop that you can hang your sun catcher with in your window. If you've chosen to use construction paper for your frame, take the piece of paper and fold it in half. You can make a variety of shapes. I've chosen to make a square. You'll cut your piece of paper into the shape you like, keeping the folded side on one side and making sure not to cut the fold off, so that you end up with two shapes that are the same folded together. Then, cut out the center of both layers to make the inside of the frame where your art can show through. Trace the new frame onto your wax paper crayon art and cut the art along the traced line. You might want to cut it just slightly smaller than what you've traced so it fits well inside. Remember, don't remove the wax paper from your art when it's done. Now open up your folded frame so that you can see both sides. Squeeze a line of glue around the two sides of the inside of the open frame. Take your crayon art and place it gently onto one side of the frame, pressing it into the glue. Then fold the other half of the frame over top and press it closed. If any wax paper edges stick out from the frame, you can cut them off after the glue dries. Cut a piece of yarn or string to hang your art. Use a skewer or a toothpick to poke a hole. Again, if your string is thick, you may need to wiggle the skewer a bit to make the hole bigger. Poke the yarn or string through the hole and tie the two ends together in a knot to form a loop to hang your art. I hope one of these methods will work for you. Have fun making your own sun catcher. Hang your new sun catcher in a window and enjoy the light shining through it. May it remind you of God's love shining through you.